Today, we are going to take a closer look at the way that Louisa was taught to pray by Jesus. When Jesus was first forming Louisa's soul to accept the gift of living in the divine will, he would take her mystically around all of creation. Louisa actually felt the love of God on everything. So if they went up to the stars, on each star there was an I love you, Louisa, that Louisa saw, heard, and actually felt. This went on for some time. Then one day Jesus said to Louisa, "And where is your love for me?" Louisa was unable to answer. Jesus taught her how to take the love she had been given, experienced on creation as they went to various places, make that her own love, then give it back to God as her love for him. This was the just way to give sufficient love from a creature to the Creator. And because it wasn't Louisa's love for God, but rather God's love for Louisa, she was then able to give infinite, perfect, and eternal love to God. Louisa called this her rounds, and she did her rounds every day. One day she was thinking to herself about how she did the same thing, and whether Jesus would be bored with hearing her say that she loved him. Remembering, Louisa was loving Jesus with the strength and purity of Jesus' own love. And Jesus answered her with a parable of two lovers. Would the wife get tired of hearing her husband say he loved her? Would the husband tire of hearing the wife say she loved him? Jesus then encouraged Louisa never to neglect doing the rounds, as they gave to him more glory than all other creatures together, but not in the divine will, saying that they love him. I've taken an excerpt from Father Sergio's book here. The sanctity of living in the divine will produces this typical way of praying, a way of uniting ourselves intentionally to God through prayer, or, as Louisa calls it, of fusing oneself. This is achieved by making rounds through the whole reality that God has fashioned in creation, redemption, and sanctification. This is found on page 28 of the book. Every reality, having come from God by one unique act of his will, carries in itself the very same love of the Creator, Redeemer, and Sanctifier. The purpose of this spiritual exercise is to recognize him and to respond to him fittingly in praise, in thanksgiving, and in reparation for man's ingratitude. The soul gives to God what comes from God, establishing in him a reciprocity of love which benefits the creature who makes the rounds, as well as all the creatures who are visited by her. And that's from Saints in the Divine Will by Father Sergio Pellegrini. Today we're going to workshop or unpack around so that we may more clearly understand and implement a prayer that gives Jesus much joy and also in these days much relief. Louisa prayed two types of rounds, general rounds and particular rounds. The general round can be found in the morning offering prayer that was used in one of the earlier talks. It's also found in the daily prayer playlist in place of the talk that day. For the particular round, we can use the one that's in the playlist Other Rounds regarding transportation. So let's start with the general round today. We'll look at a particular round once we've understood what a general round is and how to pray it. To quote Father Sergio above, Louisa would fuse herself into the divine volition and then begin her rounds. In the morning offering prayer, we find the act of fusion in the words, I fuse myself in the divine will, found after the prayer asking the Blessed Trinity to operate in us. Simple words. I fuse myself in the divine will. Simply saying these words after asking the Trinity to operate in us is all we need to do, because there is a golden rule quoted by Tony Hickey: we desire it and Jesus does all the work. Really? Can this be so? We just need to desire it? Believe it or not, Jesus does do all the work and can't wait for us to desire it so that he can get to work in us. So to fuse ourselves, as Louisa did, we simply need to desire to fuse ourselves into the divine will, and Jesus then fuses us into the divine will. So now we have fused ourselves. What next? Once we are fused into the divine will, which effectively means that our human will has joined the divine will of God, the will that created all of heaven and earth, everything, we now begin to operate with God or cooperate with God. Everything he does, we do. So, what does he do? He does his own will. Do we know what that is? In fact, the divine will operated in creation, setting everything into being, and at all moments maintains everything. Now we are fused into the divine will. We too set everything into being and maintain everything. And we do this by looking at creation overall, taking God's infinite, perfect, and eternal love that is found in all of creation, which is now ours as we are fused into Him, into His will. And as it is now ours, we can give infinite, perfect, and eternal love to God on all of creation. The divine will operated in redemption, which began in the Garden of Eden with the promise of the Redeemer and the woman who would crush the head of the serpent, through the gift of hope and the promises of the coming Messiah, down through the centuries to the incarnation, death, and resurrection of Jesus. This is a general dealing with redemption, just as we did with creation in the passage above. So now we are able to take the fruits of redemption and apply them where we will, because where we will now means where God wills. We are now fused into and operating with the divine will. Sanctification through the ages didn't just begin just with the redemption by Jesus on the cross, but like creation and redemption, sanctification began with Adam and Eve, and through all persons that cooperated with the Holy Spirit down through the ages to Mother Mary and Louisa Picaretta, when creatures could now fully operate the gift of sanctification by accepting and living the gift of living in the divine will. So that's the end of the talk. If there's anything in it that you don't understand, please just pop a comment down below this video and I will certainly answer it. God bless you.